Hymne à l'amour is one of the most iconic and emotional songs by the singer Edith Piaf.
Tant que l'amour inondera mes matins.
It was released in the year 1950 and it pays tribute, a declaration of love to her partner, who is the French boxer Marcel Cerdan, who unfortunately ended up passing away in a plane crash in the United States. And the lyrics of the song talk about the deep love and the intense love she feels for him, a love that's eternal, and even in heaven she wants to find him again, even if that requires sacrifices of her part. So it was a difficult moment, very painful for Edith, and she went through a process of depression, and she dealt with it through the composition of this song. This work has a relatively simple melody. It has a cadence, a progression also simple, that tries to highlight the singer's voice. It begins with a more melancholic, introspective cadence. As the music progresses, the orchestration also progresses. It grows in sound mass, also accompanying the very progression of the voice's interpretation. In the chorus, we have an emotional climax, where in a continuation of that progression, the pitch and the volume also increase. So the whole set of melody, orchestration and voice, it makes a set of arces and theses, which are movements of impulse and rest, that symbolize the emotional oscillation of this pain of lost love. So let's see how Dimash delivered the interpretation of the song to us.
Le ciel bleu sur nous peut s'effondrer et la terre peut bien s'écrouler.
So in this beginning, we have the beginning of the impulse movement, the arces, where Dimash starts with a note quite rounded as if it were a bass. The melody has two ground notes, two levels, which are A2 and A sharp 2. It's A and A sharp. So this deep beginning symbolizes what the lyrics are saying, which is the collapse of the sky, or the earth that can also collapse, but despite this fall, her love will still continue.
Peu m'importe si tu m'aimes.
Peu m'importe. So here we have the third level, which is not on A2 but on A3. He makes an ascending cadence, which is the top of the arces of the ascending movement that was started in the two previous phrases. It's an emotional climax.
J'aime-vous du monde
Here Dimash shows a little of his genius in the interpretation, where he is saying, I don't give a damn about what the holy world will say. So in the phrase holy world, he makes a very short vibrato, together with a slide, which is a continual sequence of notes, where you don't do. You do.
Je me vous.
He makes this continuous cadence of notes, together with an extremely short vibrato, which symbolizes a laugh of contempt. Haha, it doesn't matter. It's as if he were speaking this way. There's this descending movement of melody, and then he does the same slide going up. On the words holy word. He makes a great piano at minimum volume, and the highest note disappears, giving the idea of something that goes through the holy word, something far away that has distanced itself.
L'amour inondera
While love floods my mornings. Here he enters a piano with minimum volume, just like in the previous phrase. He adds a lot of briefness, and he enters the female register. I don't know if in a soprano or contralto range. This brief sound brings this idea of the sweetness of love, a mist or a rain bringing the water that floods. Here Dimash makes a spectacular transition from the female voice to the lyrical tenor voice with maximum volume, intensity, and projection. He also uses a very intense vibrato to symbolize exactly what the lyrics are saying about such a strong emotion of love, an uncontrolled emotion that makes a person tremble inside. On the word problème, he makes a quick slide, which might perhaps signify the confusion of emotional problems that the person is suffering, or also the person's action of putting their feelings out there. At the end of the phrase, my love, since you love me, the love me ends in a great piano with minimum volume in the passive voice. At the top of his head voice, while in the tenor register, this symbolizes the delicacy and sweetness of the feeling of love. Here Dimash was brilliant and very bold, because he closes one scene and opens another, breaking a melodic continuity of the music and of the interpretation too, where he brings the heroic characteristic, the march, a melody quite common in military marches, especially from Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. Here the lyrics say that she would go to the end of the world or dye her hair blonde. So there is this idea of adventure, challenge, a fight. And here Dimash changes the characteristic of his voice, using the pop voice with an openness. No longer uses the but rather and also including the backing vocals, to give the idea of an army, people who accompany him in this fight, in this battle, the trip that will be made around the world. The lyrics say, if you asked me. The melody, the vocal interpretation, and the rhythm of the music are of a march, but he stops and does something delicate and sensual. That's why he uses this small glissando on the accent of this small interval of notes. It's as if Edith was trying to seduce, to convince her love precisely that she will do anything for him. Now he returns to the march, the adventure, because the lyrics say that she's going to the moon and could even steal a fortune from someone. And for the second time, the phrase "if you asked me" is repeated, again with a small glissando. He adds a certain briefness, again to indicate sensuality, this attempt to seduce, to convince him. Again, he makes a simply spectacular transition that demonstrates his total technical mastery. He, in the lyrical voice, sings like a bass, with an absurdly wide-mounted, rounded voice. In a brilliant way, he clearly demonstrates what is being said in the lyrics at this moment, which says she would than her homeland, that is her country, laws than her friends, and everyone could laugh at her, but she would still do it. Amidst this heroic march cadence, this great bass also makes this pause to say, if you asked me to. He does it in a slow way too. So this bass, with this powerful voice, is that hero who will venture out and go through any and all challenges to get what he wants. And here Dimash again with total genius and audacity. He makes a complete contrast with the previous melody and the rhythm. He breaks and leaves this voice of a bass rounded for an open pop tenor voice. Also with a full voice at the top of his head voice, and he makes a drop within an ascending movement of a certain climax of the song to repeat again for the fourth time the if you asked me to in an extremely emotional and sensual way, but now aggressive. He makes a descending line in this great melisma, this sequence of notes on a single syllable. But he does this cadence in a blues mode, in a rock mode. It's unbelievable. It's something he did with genius to convey exactly the aggressiveness and sensuality through this cadence. And at the end of this melisma, he makes a big pause to confirm that he only needs to ask, so she will do all that.
If one day we had to say goodbye, and our love were to fade away and die.
Now the music melodically and rhythmically gets slower. He brings a blended voice of tenor and countertenor in a passive voice with little volume and a lot of briefness to symbolize a sad reflection of a farewell that the lyrics talk about. In this phrase that talks about a love that fades and dies, he uses a full pop tenor voice within an intensive vibrato, showing as if it were a cry for the pain of this loss, this end of love.
In my heart, you will remain dear, and I will sink into love.
This moment is the beginning of the great melodic and emotional climax of the song, where she's saying that this love will remain with her regardless of what happens, and she will sing a hymn to love. So here, in a very unique way, he is in his lyric voice with a total roundness, projection, volume, and medium oscillation, quite intensive vibratos.
In the blue, where all is harmony.
Now, at this moment, Dimash effectively brings the march, puts in the sound of the snare drum. He keeps in the lyrical tenor voice with a total volume, because the lyrics of the song are effectively singing a hymn to love. Here again, Dimash shows his total genius and the deep understanding he has of the song's lyrics and melody, where he simulates a scream in an extremely high register at the top of his head voice and leaving the lyrical roundness for a slightly more open pop note perhaps even to make it a little easier for him to reach this high note. High to heaven. So it's the voice lifted to the sky. It's the scream that comes from earth and effectively reaches the heavens.
Just for you, I'll sing a hymn. Oh, love.
The lyrics say, "Just for you I will sing a hymn of love," and he maintains the entire melody and the cadence of the march with his voice at the full power of the lyrical tenor. Here Dimash is simply brilliant from start to finish, and in this final part his technique is simply flawless and spectacular, where he enters the soprano register and from the lowest to the highest note he goes from a G-sharp 4 to a G6. This is the G-sharp 4, and the G6 he reads in whistle. The highest note he does in the whistle register. So it's the melody, the scream that came from earth and effectively reached the heavens. And the orchestration also is bringing this feeling of something that is in the heavens. So it's the great climax of the music. He returns to the tenor voice to show that the scream, despite having already reached the heavens, is still here on earth emitting this scream. And in a simply spectacular ending, it's the great emotional and interpretative climax. He now, in the tenor voice, reaches the absolute peak of his head voice, going from a C5 to an F5, making a slide so he doesn't make a cadence between the notes but rather a continuous one. So it's the voice that comes from earth is rising and effectively reaches the heavens. So Dimash really shows his absolute brilliance, technical control and the knowledge he has of music theory, but also the technical mastery he has in executing what he thinks, what he planned. Because sometimes there are musicians who even understand what needs to be done, technically executed when singing, but they can't effectively do it. And Dimash does it. He shows that he has both the theoretical knowledge and also the technical knowledge. He masters the art. So with total brilliance and boldness, he expressed it in the best possible way, what the lyrics conveyed as an idea and also as an emotion. So it's not simple virtuosity, he actually highlighted what the lyrics and the melody wanted to express. So Dimash is definitely the great technical reference that I've known so far, and it's wonderful to see that many people like his work. I read all the comments that you posted on the first video I made reacting to him, and I appreciate the compliments you made about my analysis. Unfortunately, it's truly impossible to be able to answer everyone, but I read all of them. There are people from all over the world, from Europe, Asia, Brazil, United States, and I was very happy to see so many people and to see that Dimash made the right choice by not remaining restricted to the classical music scene and coming to pop. I am getting to know him with you. It's the second time I've heard him. So I don't know the other songs he has made, but I am reading your comments and I saw that he is absolutely versatile and works in several niches of the musical world. And this is wonderful because he manages to foster in people a love for classical music and bring in more people. Because unfortunately, worldwide, it's a niche that is increasingly shrinking. So it's necessary that there are singers like him for classical music to survive, because unfortunately, it's dying. So my congratulations to Dimash, is simply brilliant, perfect, an impeccable singer. And I affirm again, we analyze here, of course, but you can simply savor it. You get hypnotized by what he does, because it's so spectacular that you just feel it. You almost don't rationalize it, but definitely there is a great work to elaborate such a piece. If you liked this analysis, leave your comment and your like. Down here, subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this. Consider making some financial support down here in the PayPal link or on the Super Thanks button. Alright, see you later.